Good morning. Again, my name is Bob Purdon, and having been a long-time trainer, consultant through many dealerships in a few countries, I want to share my observations with everybody because I think that there is a tremendous opportunity for gain in the retail automobile business, which I was involved in. And I believe in the theme that problems disguise opportunity. And the situation I'm referring to is that over really 700 dealerships that I was personally involved in interviewing the people who had been into these dealerships looking for an automobile, and the results were really surprising to me because of the consistency of the lack of structure in the business. I ask myself this question often during the evolution of these reports. Why, with all of the books written, all of the training programs, all of this information produced to promote the selling business, why, after all of that, did 90% of the reports share the fact that these customers, 90% of them, were not put in a position to buy an automobile? When all of this training and all of these ideas and concepts were designed to put us in a winning position. The answer to me lies in the vacuum, if you will, of support of the product specialist and the recognition of the fact that they are highly professional if treated accordingly and given the amount of training that any professional needs to stay on his or her game. The best part about this opportunity, in my opinion, is the fact that the answers are physically simple. Can most people greet a customer? Yes. Can most people show them an automobile? Yes. Can most people demonstrate a car? Yes. Can most people show them the inventory and guide them to select one? Yes. Could most people present numbers? Yes. The task is not impossible in its general approach. It is ridiculously simple. But yet, when I've listened to some of this information that's been presented to salespeople, quote, it was a specific moment in the interview, and there was a lot of dialogue that I would have had a difficult time remembering myself. In other words, complication was put in place. And I think that many times training carries it a degree of complication to enhance, quote, the impact of the presentation. So I think that the first factor of understanding how we can overcome this 90% factor is agreeing that a process is a very important factor and it is simple to execute, but why doesn't it get executed in the majority of cases? It's the mental side of the business that presents probably the bigger challenge. The fact that we're not geared to complete a process, we're geared to search for a sale, which is the end of the process. It's not the actual process itself. So having had the experience of being successful with the process on a training level and a personal level, I know that the key is in making sure that the process is understood and applied. So why is the application of the process vacant in any consistency? It's because the training is not consistent. So I'm not trying to over preach here, but I am very, very excited about being able to break through this wall, if you will, of inconsistency, and the fact that we're not taking the profession as seriously as we could, although we look at the results and lack of very seriously. So, first of all, I am strongly suggesting that we have a process and we train on the process. Business training, if effective, is closed-end training. That means we're bringing something to the group that we're not just saying, here it is, but we're saying, this is what we're going to do. My job is to explain why. And that's what the trainer does. The trainer gives us all the reasons for doing why we do what we do. But it has to carry the results factor with them. It has to be understood, if we're going to be successful, that everybody is required to give it their best effort to execute the plan. And that, of course, relies on management. We are not asking our product specialists to stumble through a presentation. We're asking them to follow the process, which is knowing that how they're going to greet someone when they come in, knowing what they're going to ask them for important questions of identifying their wants and needs in the model, training them to avoid confrontation of any kind, pre-selection, with the answers specifically of, I understand, oh, as far as I'm concerned, whatever it takes, other than using the right tools to respond to the customer, but actually not paying attention to the non-important factors. We ask them to get the burden of pre-qualifying completely off their shoulders. Forget who, what, when, where, what, they're here. Let's talk about where we're going. We talk about making an uncomplicated presentation. The trade is something that can divert our attention, in my opinion, the wrong way. As an example, when there is a trade, and in fact, we should have a particular program that says all trades potentially come to us, all trades. And I hear often, well, why don't you take your car and take it over to and maybe they'll buy it. Often I hear salespeople sending the trade and the customer to someone else because they'd like to have it not involved in the process, when they're restricting their own manager buyer from doing his job. He is there to appraise or identify the value of a vehicle. And every time we try to convince the customer not to trade it or have someone else look at it, we're taking the job from the buyer. So everything should come to us. Then often, and I'm using the trade as an example, often when the trade is being brought into the process, we're asking the quote salesperson to go out and walk around the trade. Why? To find something wrong with the vehicle? To some people, it's like telling them their kids are ugly. Is that going to enhance the communication and presentation? The product specialist should have nothing to do with the actual condition or the value of a trade. That is placed as a responsibility on the buyer. The product specialist didn't come up with payment options or lease options. Why would they be involved in the appraisal of a vehicle, the value of a vehicle? So if a customer says to them, the right one, you're too high, they say, excuse me, folks, I didn't look at your vehicle. We had a professional buyer value your vehicle. Rather than sit there and discuss what a dent is worth and taking the customer into the past when we should be at the same time taking the customer into the future, looking at the next vehicle, not talking about their past vehicle. So little diversions like this and the penalty of asking the people what they want to spend and all of these conversations, have you been shopping? All of these conversations are useless in the sense of guiding the customer very simply, very carefully by saying, follow me, and leading the customer through the steps of the presentation. It is ridiculously simple if we take the burden of all of this variable stuff off of our shoulders. So the product specialist, the professional product specialist, gets up in the morning knowing how they're going to meet the next person, knowing what they're going to do to get the person heading in the right direction, what questions they're going to ask, knowing when they do make a presentation how they're going to present it, knowing after the presentation's made how they're going to set the stage for the demo without mentioning the word demo, by having the customer look at a vehicle that's running and sit in the interior. Knowing where the demonstration ride is going to be, knowing where they're going to make the transition from the passenger seat to the driver's seat for the customers, knowing that they're going to sit in the back and make a presentation from between the seats, knowing that when they come back, they're now going to move the customer to the inventory to select the vehicle. Other than price, keeping price away from that. No charge to select one you like. Knowing that they're going to eventually sit down with the customer and research the figures. They knew this waking up. Knowing that after they get an offer, they're going to ask the customer how did they arrive at the offer, because it is so important, the logic or lack of. knowing that if they can't conclude it at a given point, they'll have a quote manager come in and assist them. Knowing that most customers that they meet will not be able or want to buy the first time. But if they are so impressed under those conditions with the efforts and the attention a product specialist paid to them, the product specialist will get more than their share of returning customers who buy at a rate of closing twice as much as a first-time customer. So the rewards will be there anyway. All of these factors make the day interesting for the product specialist because they have the training of a manager, they have the support of a manager, and they know that their function is most critical because that's where it all begins. That's where the rubber meets the road in the automobile business. They learn to become leaders. They won't be standing there wondering what they're going to do next with a customer and letting the customer say, well, I've got to say something, so let them carry the conversation into no man's land. They know they're going to lead the customer through the process. And they know that all of this information that a lot of people like to put up front called pre-qualifying is not applied until after the selection, and then it will all come into play anyway. So the pros timing is excellent for them and for the customer. With this being accomplished, now the whole dealership has a sense of purpose. Everybody is prepared to lead the customer, lead them, guide them, not ask them, guide them and lead them through the process so that they can be pleasantly internally surprised at the effort that they're getting, and they know they're going to give everybody a chance to say yes or no. So they know that already. This is the difference between the 90% as it is out there often today and having training really stick, because it isn't just training, it's application of the training that is the key for the right group. So when they are hearing the process presentation, do they really understand that this is the way we want to go and will go with everybody's help? That changes the whole complexion of the interest. This is why it is so important. This is why these factors are so important to us, because this is what the shopping people are telling us. They are saying to us, you have a great opportunity. I can't make any mistakes because I don't know what a mistake is as a shopper. But you as an observer can identify and diagnose this whole interview and determine exactly where I was handled properly and where I wasn't handled properly. I'm not firing anybody. I just walk away if it's not happening. So it's all up to us, which is fantastic, because the business has great opportunities to improve.